All right, Artie. We just mentioned it. We're going to have longtime friend of the podcast. Longtime friend of the podcast. Good friend. Courtney Layton on the Boneyard podcast. Courtney!
Hi!
What is going on?
Well, I heard you guys talking about getting a big banger guest. A big banger guest. I hope that was me.
It is you, but there's another one that's coming.
Is it me?
That I think is going to knock some people's socks off just by the fact that that's who we're doing, or like it's kind of out there.
Yeah.
That we would have this person on the podcast.
I'm excited. You have me intrigued. I'm ready. I need to know who it is.
We got to kind of let it simmer for a little bit. They told us to reach back out next week, but they were down.
All right.
I'll just say they need. Here's what I'll say: is they need it to be after the football season.
Okay.
Need it to be after the football season. But Courtney, I mean, you're doing so much now. I mean, WNCT, you're on the ESPN Plus broadcast.
Yeah.
Broadcasting what? Volleyball and are you doing volleyball and basketball?
Women's basketball and softball during season. But women's basketball was last Thursday or the Thursday before. And I will say I got the call from Will Bailey 2 days prior saying that they needed someone to call the game. And I said, I can do my best. And he was like, that's enough. I said, okay, great. I'm panicking the minute I get the phone call. I'm like, okay. I started doing all kind of research. When I tell you I pulled up to Minji's Coliseum with 14 pages stapled together full of facts about the ECU women's basketball team, and I'm flipping through it during the game. So anybody who had to listen to it, I'm kind of sorry because I wasn't phenomenal. And it was 105-35 ECU win. So that's kind of hard to fill empty time when all you're talking about is Amaya Joyner and Danae McNeil knocking threes from all over the court,
I mean, I was trying to give you some words to fill, but
you were, but I was panicking trying to get basketball terms to fill. You're trying to get me to throw extra stuff. I'm like
Shamalama ding dong.
I was like, I didn't even know how to
don't do that.
I was like, I'm having a hard time throwing in the term free throw right now. Like, I don't know.
All right. So when's your next? Do you know when? Are you doing it again, or are you doing women's basketball again?
They probably won't ask me to come back.
Now that they know that I'm texting you during the game saying, hey,
scream out Shamalama ding dong.
Yeah, I was like, I read my phone. I said, oh my gosh. Because then I realized that people were actually listening and like I wasn't. And then I was like, oh my God, people are actually sitting in their TV in their home listening to me speak right now. And I will say I was more than thankful that I was the person they decided to call. I really, really was. I just hope they don't regret that decision.
They don't. All right, I got some terms for you for the next one.
Oh gosh.
Cowabunga.
Yeah. I'll have to say something about like a three, like just like the ball goes cowabunga into the basket or something like that.
Like Danae McNeil with the 3-pointer. Cowabunga.
Yeah.
I mean, you had so much time to come up with some cool stuff, Jared. And it's cowabunga. That's come up with.
Every broadcaster has to have their thing.
That's true. I don't have one yet.
You got like. I don't know. I mean, you can. I mean, obviously, like paint it purple. That's
what I was gonna say.
Like you got that, but like you can do like. The ship has sank.
Something fun.
It's got to be fun.
Why don't you start commentating? You have all these fun terms. You should start.
Bombs away.
You've thought about it. You just need to pick it.
No, I think about this on a daily basis.
Jared would absolutely get canceled. He'd be good for about 15 minutes, and he would say something, and he would get canceled after 15 minutes.
I mean, sometimes, but you have a little button to push where nobody can hear you, and sometimes you're thankful for that button because you're like you have to cough, or you need to take a breath, or you're just like, I don't have anything to say right now. I just, like I said, 70-point win. It gets to the end of the game, and you're like,
there's nothing. Yeah,
Cowabunga.
Cowabunga. You're just filling in dead air at that point. You're like, I don't know what to say now. But it went now again. I was very thankful, and it was a lot of fun. And I feel like I really, if they do decide to ask me to come back, which we'll see. I am thankful that I am the one that they called. That did mean a lot to me, regardless of how my performance went.
Everybody right now, go tweet at Will Bailey. Say we need more Courtney
No.
on the podcast.
He would be like, he's like losing my number. He's like, Courtney who? No, we don't know her.
But anyways, how are things going? I know like you're at WNCT. Talk to us a little bit about that, about the process and what you're doing there.
So I'm still doing digital content. We have a digital studio there, and we're really, through the help of my boss and other digital coworkers, renovating the digital studio. And I have a sports podcast at work, kind of like y'all's, but y'all's is a little bit more broad. Mine's kind of, I don't want to say more slim, but you guys do a lot more, and you do like live streaming. I don't do that. I kind of get ECU. I've had ECU golfers. I had Mike Houston on there, Kim McNeil. I just had a Maya Joyner on there. So I get to do cool stuff like that. So I think that my job obviously is my main priority is being a digital content producer for our website. Yep. But my podcast is a really big focus for me because I really, really enjoy doing podcasts. I think they're so much fun. So when you texted me, I was like, yes. Like, I think they're so fun to just get on here and talk about sports. And that's part of why I think I was so easily able to take over that podcast and take on that role. And I like to do mine now that I can get in contact with these people. I'll go out and do them face to face instead of two cameras, kind of like, just switching back and forth. And I think, again, with the help of my coworker, I can't do them on my own. I'm very, very excited that I get to do that and grow in that way. And I actually met a bunch of people from behind the scenes at Carolina Hurricanes games through that opportunity. So that was really cool. But yeah, putting out a lot of content for the website, long story short, and doing a sports podcast. So yeah.
Now, you mentioned the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm happy you brought that up because I got two Hurricane fans on this podcast right now.
Oh, yeah.
Are y'all's Canes going to actually do something this year, or is it still smoke and mirrors? What y'all got for us this year?
Give it time.
Yeah, I was a little worried. If you can see my cat going rogue in the background, I'm very sorry. I was a little bit worried. I went to the game the other night, and we looked a lot better. I just feel like I was so excited for Svetch to come back because that's my guy. And I know that he was hurt, and I totally get that. But it just kind of seems like my boyfriend actually pointed out that he's out there skating kind of timidly. And if that's the case, don't put him out there. Yeah. So I feel like it'll take some time, but we also were put into the season with really, really high expectations. And sometimes it's really hard to continue that. And I kind of compare that to the Atlanta Braves, what the end of last year. You're thrown in with such high expectations, and then look what happens. You know what I mean? And that sucks because I'm just getting into baseball. So it's like, it's almost like when you're put on a higher pedestal, it's harder to keep up with that rather than if you were kind of humbled, rise above that instead. That's just my opinion.
The thing with the Canes this year, and you see it every year in the NHL, there's always a couple of teams that get off to like insanely good starts. This year, Vegas was kind of surprised everybody and getting off to a hot start after winning the Cup, and they lost some guys. The Rangers got off to, they're like 10-0-1 in their last 11 games.
Yeah.
Artemi Panarin has like a 15-game point streak to start the season. Boston, nobody saw Boston being as good as they are this year.
Yeah.
Like those teams, like kind of like you see them and you're like, oh crap, like they're really good.
Mm-hmm.
But also you look at like the Hurricanes, who I think they've played like 10 of their first like 15 or 16 games on the road.
I know, and I think that's a struggle for us, and it happens every year in the playoffs too.
Well, we see that. Every year the Hurricanes start the season with a lot of road games. They get a lot of road games out of the way early. They don't like to play at home during the state fair, rightfully so. Right? They don't want to contend with the state fair at all. So they run into a lot of issues, and they do one of their long West Coast road trips. So they go to California, or they go to British Columbia for the first week or two of the season, and sometimes they do really well. This year, look, LA's good. Anaheim has some superstars on their team, with Trevor Zegras being like one of the hottest stars in the league, right? San Jose is San Jose. San Jose is going to be the worst team in the league this year. Arizona,
NHL.
Arizona's trash. Like, and I believe you got four points or maybe 5 points out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the Hurricanes don't have an overtime loss, so they got 4 or 6 points out of that road trip. They also had to go to Colorado. Colorado is always good, right? Like,
Yeah.
they've already played like a tough schedule, and it's all been on the road, right? Not to mention you did that without Andrei Svechnikov. You did a lot of that without Brett Pesce, and a lot of that without Sebastian Aho.
Yeah, and now you have Freddie. Now Freddie's out.
And now Freddie's out. I think Pyotr Kochetkov is going to be a good backup for Ronta. But yeah, I mean, sorry to steal. I could talk Canes hockey.
Oh, me too. No, me too.
If there wasn't a million Hurricanes podcasts that are absolutely mid, I would most definitely do another Hurricanes podcast. But everybody has a Hurricanes podcast, and they all suck. So
then make your own and make it better. Learn from what they suck at and make yours better.
Hey, maybe we will. Maybe we'll figure something out.
And another thing about that, I don't know if this is how you felt, but when the season ended in poor fashion, that left a bitter taste in my mouth. I can imagine them as well. And we didn't get a goalie in the offseason. I was beside myself. I don't know if I was the only one who went into offseason with the thought that was what we were going to come out with, and we didn't, but I was almost baffled that there was just no change in the net. After the struggles of last season, I was kind of surprised. But I'm not a coach. I'm not Rod Brindamore, and he's successful, and I'm not at coaching, so he knows better than me. But still.
Yeah, I don't know if goalie was – I mean, Hurricanes goalies have had the lowest save percentage or the highest save percentage, I think, over the last couple of years, or best goals against average, one of those stats over the last 2 or 3 years, right? And I think where the Hurricanes missed out on is going after one of those like true kind of deadly scorers. Like,
we don't have like a superstar.
We have stars.
Yeah.
We have Martin.
So I thought you guys had a couple like guys that potential superstars, but you don't have that.
I mean, when I think of a superstar, I think of a guy that's consistently hitting 100 points in a season. In the Hurricanes Whalers franchise, there's only been one player, or I believe all time in the Hurricanes Whalers franchise. I may be wrong. There's only been one player that ever hit 100 points, and that was Eric Stahl in the 05-06 season, right? Mm-hmm. And you need a guy like that. You don't need multiple guys like that. I mean, we see the 2 best players in the league play for Edmonton, who's coming into PNC Arena Wednesday night. They suck.
Yeah.
Edmonton sucks. They've already fired their coach.
Yeah.
So you don't need that, but you need one of those game changers, an Artemi Panarin. You need a guy that a Mika Zibanejad, a Jack Hughes, a Sidney Crosby. One of those guys, Mika Rantanen, right? Like, you need one of those guys on your team that when the spotlight is on and you need a goal, you throw them over the bench every 2 shifts and they can score.
Well, in overtime, it's Marty Necas, but it feels like in regulation, we just don't. And I feel like that's just maybe luck. He's overtime king, but, you know.
There's more space on the ice, and he's the fastest guy, one of the fastest guys in the league.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so 3-on-3 overtime. Artie, look what you've done. You've turned the Boneyard podcast into a Hurricanes podcast.
You're welcome.
But no, I mean, I could talk Canes hockey all day long.
Yeah.
We
can move on if we're done with that.
I think the biggest thing, though, final thing I'll say, and I'll let you rebuttal or whatever. The only thing I'll say is, for the Hurricanes, they don't have a guy that can dangle somebody, like dangle through a whole team, come up, forehand, backhand, top, net, game over, right? They don't have that guy.
We don't have a guy that can easily skate around a one-on-one. It's a hit or miss on a one-on-one, and I feel like
they're too passive. They're way too passive, but that's also not the Hurricane style. The Hurricane style is to set you up, kind of like what a Navy's offense does. They set you up, They're very hard hitting, and they're kind of a grindy kind of offense.
Yeah.
Grind you down, get you tired in your defensive end, and then they strike. If they can have that long sustained pressure in the offensive end of the rink, then they're going to score. I can almost tell you when I'm watching a Hurricanes game, oh, they're about to score.
Yeah.
And if you're a Hurricanes fan, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They start cycling the puck around, and you're like, oh, watch out, here it comes, and somebody gets set up. But I digress. Enough Hurricanes talk.
We can keep going if you want to, but I know that's not why you're on here.
We'll talk. We can talk Hurricanes anytime, Courtney. Like we can. Maybe we will just start a Hurricanes podcast.
I would be down.
I mean, my wife says I do too many podcasts in general, but
there's no such thing.
Well, when you have a full-time job and a 6-month-old daughter, and
that's true.
Like your wife works till 7 o'clock every night. Yeah, it gets busy. But so point. Courtney, we always have you on, and this isn't the reason we have you on, but I think it's important. We always talk about epilepsy. I mean, you've lived with epilepsy for what, the last 10, 15 years?
We're going on that long?
8 years, yeah. So you've lived with epilepsy. You've kind of you've had to deal with it, right? And figure out what works for you. Talk a little bit about that. How long has it been now since your last episode, and how are things going?
Yeah, so I haven't had one since August of last year, but it was a really bad one. I ended up in the hospital. My 3rd degree burned the right side of my chest and under my arm because I fell on my hair tool. So that was definitely traumatizing, I think. But at the same time, it was any other seizure just ended up. I mean, it was like a freak accident. Landed me in the hospital for like 6 days. I had to have surgery. They thought I was gonna have like sepsis, septic infection, whatever it was, and so they had to keep me hooked up to this thing, sucking all this infection out of me. I had to be transported in an ambulance to the UNC Burn Center because it's the closest one. So, I mean, it was a lot at one time. And I've gone through medication changes. I'm now on like 5 or 6 medications all at one time, including this, which I always have with me. It's like a nasal spray, and it's a rescue medication. So if I feel like I'm about to have a seizure, you put it in your nose, and it helps. And I keep it with me like a security blanket. It's always sitting there, even if I'm not twitching. So I have that all the time. And there's been a lot of issues with medications, and there's one that's very effective. And this is something that, I don't have an issue with talking about because it is a problem. There's a medication called Depakote, and it is like 99% effective. But my neurologist will not prescribe it to women of childbearing age because if you take it, you cannot have kids. And so it's like I'm 24, and I know that there are people younger than me that have had seizures their whole life and are ongoing that had to make this decision. But at 24, that is such a hard decision to make. So I haven't gotten on it yet. As long as I can remain where I am, I will not go that route. But these are the things that when people think about epilepsy, they don't think of, and that's not their fault. That's nobody's fault because how are you supposed to know that? I didn't know that. So it's a lot of struggles that come with it. But like you said, Epilepsy Awareness Month is very important because people know that it's seizures, but there's more to it, like I just said. But I'm doing pretty good. No seizures since August of last year. So I'm working on getting back into driver's ed. But the frustrating thing is there's adult driving lessons or whatever. Well, they told me to submit an application with my permit on it. Well, I don't have a permit because they took it away when I was 18 years old. And so I'm like, okay, well, here's the problem. I don't have a permit. I'm taking driver's ed because I don't have a permit. So I'm having like this whole issue with the DMV, but I'm working on getting my license. So we'll see how that goes.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. You have any questions?
About to be on the road.
Everybody watch out.
I'll have to call my insurance.
Yeah. Everybody just like wrap your cars in bubble wrap or something. I don't know.
And it has nothing to do with the epilepsy. It's just she's going to be driving.
Let's just throw the epilepsy out the window. It's just me as a person. everybody needs to beware.
But no, I mean, I guess my only follow up would be what can the casual person, who's kind of ignorant, kind of unaware of epilepsy, what can we do to go out of our way to kind of spread awareness and educate ourselves on this condition?
Yeah. I feel like one really important thing to remember is that strobe lights don't affect every person with epilepsy. That is something that not a lot of people know. There are also multiple types of seizures, and one of them is just where someone is staring off into space. And if you see someone staring off into space for a significant amount of time and you're doing everything you can to get their attention and they're not responding, chances are they could be having some kind of seizure. So that is something that if somebody's having that issue and they're just kind of not responding to you, sometimes it can look kind of funny, but that's definitely something that's a time where you need to help somebody out. If someone around you does have a seizure and you are already aware of their epilepsy or seizure disorder, because those are two different things, do not call 911. Put them on their side. Don't put anything in their mouth because they're going to bite on their tongue. I've lost chunks of my tongue. Luckily, they grew back, but because you bite down so hard. They're going to have like foaming and bleeding out of their mouth. It's going to be scary. Don't put anything in their mouth or else they're going to like bite your finger off. Make sure that their head isn't near anything hard so they don't hit their head while they're convulsing. Set a timer for 5 minutes. If it goes over 5 minutes, then you call 911. Obviously, if you're unaware of somebody's seizure disorder or epilepsy, or they don't have it at all and they have a seizure in front of you, call 911. But those are my main things. If I'm around anybody, I always say, hey, if I have a seizure, please don't call the ambulance. If it goes over 5 minutes, be my guest. But if it doesn't, please don't, because we can't afford it. So I'm fine.
I didn't know that because I'm the type of person I'd have called the ambulance right away. So I mean, that's going to be like good to know because I didn't know you're supposed to have that 5 minute timer to see if they can actually naturally kind of dissipate on its own. So
yeah, and there's epilepsy bracelets. There's bracelets for any kind of disability or no matter what it is to make people aware that you have it. And I've had an epilepsy bracelet where it says my name and like it. But it's just so ugly. Like I can't wear it. It's so ugly. Like I have my nice Tiffany bracelet my parents got me for graduation, and you want me to put that thing on? No, I don't wanna.
I get it.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so that's it. And that's a whole other podcast. I could do an epilepsy podcast. I mean, that's another thing I could talk forever about because it is important. But
yeah, I know that, like that's the reason we first brought you on. Obviously, like we wanted to talk to you, but then this friendship really began, right? Like I guess this is 3 or 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
When we first had you on, and now here we are, and I mean we talk all the time. I mean, talk about like. I'd like to get your point of view because we've talked about it on the podcast here, our friendship with you. But like, talk about your point of view of like how we've become friends, and I don't know, like it's just not that you have to say you're our friend, we're your friends, right?
Yeah.
But if you could just tell me to go fuck myself, and I would. Yeah. But like.
No. Oh my gosh. I know that I don't remember exactly how y'all reached out, but I do know that y'all had reached out to me and the podcast. I remember I was sitting in my room in Indian Trail because I think it was over a holiday break or something because I was still in college. I was sitting in my room in Indian Trail and I remember being on it. My cat just knocked my other cat off the counter. Oh. She's fine. Sorry. Sorry. But I know that it was a lot of fun, and then you guys continued to reach out, and I felt that was really important. It wasn't just hey, come talk about your epilepsy. Okay, yeah. That's all we wanted. And I'm not saying that I'm some kind of famous celebrity you're going to throw on there and be like, oh, we're so thankful. Okay, bye. That's not what I'm saying at all. But the fact that you guys continued to reach out was really important to me. And I know that you guys talked about it on a later podcast after that I saw both of you at a football game. And I think it was the first time I met both of you. And I ran up to y'all and asked for a picture. And I said, we have to take a picture. And then the next podcast, y'all, or something like that, y'all had said that I made you feel way more important than you were, which isn't true because you guys were one of the first people, if not the first, to reach out to me and ask if I would be on a podcast, which meant a lot to me. And it's kind of what made me find my love for wanting to do stuff like that. And I think both of you have consistently reached out to me. We've talked about things. I've put a lot of trust in both of you when it comes to certain topics. I'm sitting on here talking about my epilepsy, obviously. You guys make me feel very welcomed. Like I don't come on here and I'm like, I'm going to be like interviewed. Like, no, it's not like that. You asked me if I would be on here and I was like, yes, like I don't care. So I feel like I definitely have a connection with both of you. I know you've asked me, Jared, Courtney, why weren't you in the football thing today? What's I'm losing the word now. The press box. I was like, I'm at the game. I'm not working today.
Must be nice. I'm kidding.
Right? Yeah, it must be nice. Honestly, that press box can get a little boring sometimes. So
I
sometimes in the stands, like just in the action.
It's nice because you got a clean bathroom, you got some food.
Yeah.
But I love being down there.
Yeah.
Like I've started this season going down into the stands and like spending a half in the stands and just being there. Like
yeah. I
go ahead.
I just missed it because I hadn't been in there since I was a student, and I mean, it was just it felt good to be back in here. My boyfriend's still a student because he's a retired Marine, so he's still in school now. So I sat in the student section with him. I will be honest, at 24, I did not enjoy it. I didn't like it at all. I was like, this is not good. I did not have a good time, and we lost. So
Go figure.
Go figure. We lost. Was just not a good time. What I enjoy is getting tickets through my work, who I am thankful for that will give me tickets and a parking pass. Sit in that section, not have a problem going to get a drink or going to get food or whatever it is. So that's that. And I don't know if that just means I'm getting old and that scares me, but I would rather do that.
We're just grown and sexy now. That's all it is. We can't be little kids no more.
Exactly. But back to your question, I think I formed a very good friendship with both of you, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm thankful that I get to do this with you guys as many times as you want me to, because it does mean a lot to me.
Yeah, and I think like we got to iron out some details, but we've talked about it. I mean, having more content with you and doing more stuff in free reign and whatnot, and I think that's going to be a thing, right? Like, I mean, if you're down, we're down.
Yeah.
Like, we can send you the information to the TikTok and Instagrams and whatnot, and
that's what I do for a living.
Exactly.
My title is digital content producer. Like, now, do I wish that was a little bit more social media, because my title, working for the local news, is definitely more guaranteed geared towards the website, not necessarily, which is fine. I like my job, but because we're local news, we don't have a very we don't do a lot of TikTok. Our Instagram posts are strictly like what's going on in news, which is obvious. But I have so much fun with social media. I am very active on my social media all the time, except for Snapchat. I don't really use that. But TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, I am consistently on there. So that is definitely something that I love. And I know people are like, social media is toxic. I don't care. I enjoy social media.
We're toxic.
Don't care.
The Boneyard podcast is toxic. All right. Well, I was telling you I was going to have a conversation with her, but I think we just had the conversation. I think
right here,
you're just a part of us now.
Yeah.
Hey, deals are happening here.
We're shaking hands virtually.
People are listening to this probably like, holy crap, like what is going on? But Courtney, moving along, we've been doing this for an hour and 40 minutes tonight. So we're a long ways into the podcast. We got some Twitter questions.
Let's get to it. Yes.
And you don't feel like you have to answer all of them, since you're like I didn't tell you that we were doing this. Like, we didn't tell you that you were going to be on our Twitter questions, but here you are.
I sent in one question one time, and I can't remember what it was. Oh gosh, he was taking questions that I don't even remember what it was, and I was like, they're gonna hate me. But you answered it, because I listened to the whole thing to make sure you answered my question.
I try to answer. There's some that we get that are kind of stupid, and
just a little bit.
I try to answer. Let's see. We've tweeted a lot today. I really just need to start like marking these.
Or you should pin them at like the beginning of.
Yeah, I need to pin them.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go with longtime friend of the podcast. Another guy we've been saying we need to have on the podcast already, but we just never have. John Smith.
Oh yeah.
Longtime friend. I mean, here we go. What's it going to take to get to the top of the American Athletic Conference in football and basketball? A new offensive coordinator, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
NIL. money.
Hey,
Yeah.
over $500,000 in the last week. Support businesses that support Team Boneyard. And if you are a business that supports Team Boneyard, DM us. We're literally telling you we will advertise for you for free
Yeah.
on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay us a dime. No
Yeah.
money will be exchanged in a deal like that.
Unless you want to.
Yeah.
No. If you say, hey, I'm going to pay you for it, I'm going to turn right around and donate it to NIL.
That's awesome.
So I'm telling you, free podcast advertising.
I think that on football, one thing I will say about football, and I don't know if you already talked about this with the OC, whatever's going on with that, with Donnie Kirkpatrick. One thing, as soon as I saw it, I was with my mom. We were eating breakfast, and she saw it, and I thought she was kidding. One thing that I hope a lot of people understand is that I know he's not leaving until the end of this year, but the program is not going to change overnight. It's just not going to. We're not going to come out next season. It doesn't matter who we hire at OC. It really doesn't matter. Be the best offensive coordinator in the world. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change overnight. It's just not going to. But I think, will we be more successful next season? It really can't get any worse than it is right now unless we won 0 games. So we'll see. I think for basketball, I don't think we're far off. I mean, you lose to Upstate, which sucked, but it wasn't like it was a blowout by any means. I mean, and I've seen a lot of grit in this team, and then the buzzer beater just an hour ago, 2 hours ago, was the most unreal thing I've ever seen in my life. So, and I think Mike Schwartz is very bought into ECU and the culture and the program, and I've tried to have him on my podcast. He's just very busy. Not that he's a bad guy. It's basketball season. Courtney, it's not going to get everything you want. But from his press conferences, he seems very bought into the program, and I think that is something that is very, very important because speaking from a former ECU athlete, I speak on this all the time. I'm not afraid to say it. I had a coach that was not bought into the program, and we were not successful. But he is, and I've just seen the success that he has. Does that mean top of the American? I don't know. But does that mean higher and more successful? Yeah, I think so.
We talked about this a little bit with Matt Artie.
Yeah.
That you kind of have to have one of the programs, whether it be basketball or football. We already know what ECU is in baseball, right? But like one of the programs in those two sports,
They got to initiate it. Right?
They've got to build some kind of momentum. And I've said for the longest time that either in basketball, there's 3 ways to get good, right? Either you have just a crazy season where out of nowhere, kind of like FAU did last year.
Yeah.
You get ranked. Now you start building momentum. You start getting recruits, right? You make a crazy deep run in the March Madness, become a Cinderella team. That's one way.
Yeah.
The other way, you're a blue blood, the Carolinas, the Kentuckys, the Kansases, the Dukes of the world, right? The third way is you cheat.
Yeah.
Like that, there's 3 ways to get good in college basketball, and those are the 3 ways. And
some are blue bloods and cheating. So.
Well, sometimes it's a combination of all 3, right? And that's what has to happen. Every school, I shouldn't say every, but most schools cheat in some way or another.
One way or another, I agree.
That's just college athletics.
Yeah.
Right? Like
it honestly just means you're trying.
Yeah. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Exactly. And I mean, it could be as small as a kid getting extra tutoring when the other students didn't get it. It's just something stupid, and it could, no matter how big or small it is, it could call it what it is.
It could be giving a recruit a hamburger in a bag.
No, that was stupid. I'm not gonna lie. That was
it could be stealing other teams' signs. Oh wait, that's the same school.
The witch hunt is crazy.
But no, to me, like that, those are the 3 ways. I think ECU football is closer. Look, I said it earlier. I don't think ECU football is that far off. Running back room is stacked.
Can I ask why that is? I'm just curious.
The running back room is stacked.
Optimistic person I've spoken to.
Running back room is stacked. Defense, there's going to be a lot of guys coming back next year on defense. I see a lot of people saying like, "Oh, what about the transfer portal?" Look, we saw Tegan Wilk transfer today.
Yeah.
I don't think that's like look, I love Tegan. Tegan's my boy.
Yeah.
But I'm not too worried about it.
But
like
offensively, we have a lot to do, though. I mean, even outside of coordinator, we have a lot of work to do.
All right, so we already know you're going to find an offensive coordinator, and honestly, the only way to go from your offensive coordinator now is up.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
Yeah,
so okay, quarterback, same thing. You're going to have a quarterback next year, and it can't get much worse than this year.
Yeah.
But I think it's more of a slow grind, though. Like, I think even next year, like, the best we can look for is 5 to 6 wins. Like, it's going to be a slow grind.
You know, already this leads in perfectly to the next question. PD asks, who are some guys that we should be on the lookout for offensive coordinator? And there's several names. It's way too early to kind of get into that. Like, there's some names that like we kind of put together here that we can talk about. Let's see, where are we? We've got the list. Okay, Joe Sloan, quarterback coach from LSU. I mean, ECU alum, coached Louisiana Tech, right? Like, he's been with Jaden Daniels as his direct coach. Billy Gonzalez, wide receiver coach at Florida. His son, Cole, is the quarterback at Western Carolina, who had a phenomenal season this past year.
Yeah.
Was Mississippi State assistant offensive coordinator under Mike Leach for the first few years. Was on Urban Meyer's 2004 Utah Fiesta Bowl staff. That's a guy, right? Like, and his son Cole could be a guy that could transfer, right? Like, that's one of those. I mentioned him earlier. I think that's a guy that is going to get some looks, and he has the numbers to back it up, right? So there, if you bring in his dad and him, you kill two birds, one stone.
Yeah.
Right. You got the tight end coach at Tennessee. He was coached at how do you pronounce it? Alec Abeam? I don't know. Josh put that in there. Josh is much smarter than I am. Coached by Josh Heupel when he was at Missouri. Was at Ole Miss, and then one that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, and Artie, I'd kind of like your take. You're the Big Ten fan. The guy that I kind of like is Mike Yurcich, former OC at Penn State, got fired after losing to Ohio State and Michigan, but has had some decent offenses at times. I don't know. It just seems like, okay, he could really kind of get back into it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That may be he was already fired from one Power 5 program. Maybe he comes down to a Group of 5 program and
try to prove himself again, try to get back in the ranks. Yeah.
And then kind of sets himself up to be okay. He's been the offensive coordinator. He's been a coach at Oklahoma State, been a coach at Penn State, offensive coordinator, calling all the plays at East Carolina. Now, okay, a Power 5 school calls or a Group of 5 school calls. Okay, hey, we're going to make you our next head coach. That's kind of like the guy. He's a younger guy. I mean, not saying Donnie is old, but he's not. He ain't no spring chicken.
Yeah.
It's important though. Like you need somebody that can relate to these players. That's extremely important when you hire somebody. Is that they can actually relate to these young kids, especially these young kids who know they can make money now, right? Like where they know NIL is going to be a huge thing. So I mean, yeah, you don't want somebody that's 70, 80 years old trying to coach offense out there. So
True.
I want to say this. So we've actually, believe it or not, listeners, we go out every once in a while and we do journalistic shit. And the one thing that we did was we started reaching out to some recruits, some guys that are already committed, that are on the offense. Look, we talked about it earlier. ECU has the number 1 recruiting class in the conference, right? Like I believe they're pushing like top 50 nationally. Like they've got a pretty high recruiting class. Here's the thing: every single one of them that I talked to, all had nothing but positive things to say. They had positive things to say about Donnie Kirkpatrick, but they said we're locked in. We're not going anywhere. Okay. I mean, here's, and I asked him, I said, can I quote you? And this is from Cole Hodge, 3-star quarterback, incoming freshman. He said, I'm not at ECU yet, so I don't have much information about the coaching change. Coach Kirkpatrick was my position coach who recruited me, and I was excited to play for him. He played a significant role with my QB coach, Chris Redmond, at Louisville, prepping him for the NFL. At the same time, I have a great relationship with Coach Houston, and I trust that he will always do what's best for the program. And I'm still really excited to play for East Carolina. So,
Okay.
Making a change is not gonna bring the sky down.
Well, that's good, and I really like that, and people that are coming to what is my alma mater. But I love Coach Houston. I love ECU. I love ECU football. But you kind of have to wonder at this point for these commits who are, like you said, we're cracking top 15 in the nation. What is keeping ECU so appealing to them? Watching this season fall apart and go downhill so quickly. What is the appeal? What is the promise? What are we not seeing? Because that's definitely, if I was a recruiter, I'd be like,
to me, and I was called a couple weeks ago the one of the most, what was it? I was one of the most. I was always down in the dumps on ECU. I can't think of the word. I don't know. That's why I have a podcast.
They said that we were too negative.
Yeah, we were the most negative. I don't know why I couldn't think of negative. I don't know. Somebody on Twitter said we were always negative. And I'll say this. While everybody's thinking that the sky is falling, like, I think this is a great opportunity for ECU, like, to really kind of figure something out. Look, ECU's defense was absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah, not that long ago.
We trusted Mike Houston with bringing in Blake Harrell, friend of the podcast. And let me tell you this. Everybody's talking about, oh, well, we got to pay Blake Harrell to keep him. Okay, yes. You're probably going to have to pay him a little bit more, maybe. He needs a raise anyways. Like,
he deserves it.
That was my next question, if you think he's
Here's what I'll say about Blake. And I'll say Coach Harrell. I don't want to. Well, I look.
You know him on a first name basis since y'all had drinks together.
Here's what I'll say about Coach Harrell. When talking with him, and like Courtney, you know this just as well as anybody that's come on the podcast. When we talk to you, and you kind of talked about this earlier, when we talk to you as a guest on the podcast, or we talk to you outside of the podcast, it doesn't change. The person you get on the podcast. So us talking to Coach Harrell, we've become very good friends with Coach Harrell.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
So like he's I text him every once in a while. He texts me randomly. Like that, and that's not just name dropping, but what that is I know I've gotten to know him personally.
Mm-hmm. He's a very personable guy, it seems.
And
too.
what I will say is he's very family oriented, and we talked about it earlier this year on the podcast where he invited me out for drinks. We were at the same beach. We were at the same beach, and he was like, "Hey, I'm here. I know your family has a place here. Let's get together. Let's get some drinks."
Wow.
And I was like,
"That's
bet."
so cool.
I was like, "Bet." And then I asked him this. I said, "Would you ever, like, what's the goal?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to become a head coach? Do you want to leave?" I don't think he never said like, "Oh, I wouldn't become a head coach." I don't think if that was offered, he would consider it.
Yeah.
But he said that he wants to be at ECU for the long run. He loves it at ECU. His family loves it at ECU. Basically told me as long as ECU will have me, I will be there. His kids who are in middle school, I believe, maybe upper elementary school, they love their school, right? They love their friends. They've developed good relationships here in Eastern North Carolina, and he loves it, right? And that when he tells me that tells me a lot about him, and tells me a lot about where his kind of mindset is. He's loyal. He's loyal to a T, loyal to Coach Houston, and loyal to ECU, and we need more coaches like that. So that I'm not worried about Coach Harrell leaving, not until Mike Houston is gone.
Right.
So I'll say that, like, just in conversation with him. All right, Next question. This is the last question. All right. This is also from PD. PD has developed a Thanksgiving tradition of asking the Boneyard podcast a food-related question.
Oh, God.
This year, PD says, is mac and cheese a traditional Thanksgiving side or no?
At my house, yes. That doesn't mean it's my favorite, but it is there.
I mean, what kind of communist doesn't think mac and cheese isn't a?
Apparently, several people on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, they've been having this debate today. I saw it elsewhere. Antoine Staley, like I said, friend of the podcast, has been tweeting about it quite a bit. People are tweeting back at him saying he's wrong. He says that mac and cheese is a staple. I actually, when I saw that question, I asked my wife, and she said no, mac and cheese is not a Thanksgiving dish. It's a Christmas and Easter dish. So, yeah, my wife's a communist.
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes, even though it's not my favorite. I would still say yes. I had another question about social media though. I was wondering something about Coach Houston, and who also Jared, I'm pretty sure you were in there, but I could be wrong, but I will tell a short story. No, you were in there when Coach Houston came in for the press conference and my phone went off. Yeah.
Well,
Artie, do you know the story?
I think Jared might have told me the story.
Thanks for spreading that. I appreciate that information. But no,
I think I said it on the podcast.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Apparently, the very next press conference, I was not there, and Malcolm warned everybody to turn their phones off. But so that was literally the worst thing that ever happened to me. I thought I was going to start crying. It was to the point where me and Coach Houston follow each other on all socials. I messaged him on Twitter and profusely apologized. I was like, I am so sorry. And he was just, and I don't want to say like quote what he didn't say. I have them literally pulled up right here. He said, do not worry. I will be honest. I didn't recognize you in the hat. No worries at all. Thank you for the message. I said, Coach Houston, I felt like I was going to start crying. I am so sorry. Thank you for being so understanding. And he said, don't you worry one bit. I hope you have a good night. And after that, and I mean, he messaged me back like 20 minutes later after a hard loss, after you saw the look on his face in the press conference. So I really like Coach Houston. I think he's very nice. He's not my coach. But then it started to come out after Denny O'Brien tweeted that Coach Houston had blocked him, that Coach Houston had blocked a lot of people. What I was told was that, yes, Coach Houston may have blocked them, but that the screenshots were old. They were screenshotting them at the time to make it look like it was during the game, to make it look like Coach Houston wasn't in the game or something. I don't really know what was going on with that, but there are tweets that Coach Houston isn't even tagged in, and he has still gone and blocked certain people, but not blocked other people. And I'm just curious, what do you think is his like extent of, I've got to block you, I can't read this anymore? Because everybody's saying the same things. I don't put it on my Twitter because I don't want to get fired. But a lot of people, I mean, put it all over their socials, and that's fine. That's what social media is for. But
we're not blocked.
That's what I'm saying. That's what, and not that you speak extremely negatively about the program, but we all have bad things to say, and some people are blocked and some aren't. Yeah. And I just wonder what's the breaking point for him to be like, "You're done." I'm just curious.
I don't know. I mean, we've had some fun tweets about sitting in your recliner or flying kites over the past couple of weeks, but
East Twitter can be unforgiving at times, though. It definitely can be harsh. Yeah. But I mean, there are some things that are said that are true and that need to be said.
Right.
But it could definitely be a dumpster fire sometimes.
Yeah. I mean,
the tweets after the loss were brutal. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't want my head coach on social media like that anyway. To be completely honest with you.
Hell, Donnie Kirkpatrick's social media still links to James Madison.
That's okay with me. I don't want my coaches on socials like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. So, all right. What is your favorite side? I think we've talked about this several times on the podcast already, but we're about done. What's y'all's favorite side?
Sweet potato casserole. Easy.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I love cranberry sauce. So I'm not gonna lie. I might be by myself on that. I love cranberry sauce. Love
It
it.
got to be the stuff out of the can though.
Straight out the can, you slice it.
Yep.
Love it.
All right, I'm gonna say dressing. I like both of those,
I remember you saying that.
but dressing is. Savannah's starting to cook it tonight, so we're.
You said that You said that. I remember this conversation verbatim. You told me that one time we talked. It had to have been November because it was Epilepsy Awareness Month. I remember this conversation. I'm having like deja vu.
All right. Let's see. I think we only got one game on Gambling Corner this week. I guess. I guess, Artie. I'll play into you wanting to talk about.
We don't have to do Ohio State, Michigan. We don't have to.
I mean, all right.
I'm you know who I'm going for. You know what I'm gonna say.
Michigan's a 3-point favorite. Do they cover?
Yes.
Okay. There you go. All right, but the game of the week. The Tulsa Golden Hurricane.
Battle of the Suck.
I was gonna say the Battle of the Mid. I mean, not even. Mid.
I mean, what's below mid?
I don't know.
Battle of the Mid, Battle of the Suck, Battle of the Bastards.
Battle of This is the shitstorm bowl. All right. ECU line has moved 4 points. ECU's now a 3-point favorite. They were a 1-point dog when the original lines came out. Over under is 44.5. Bet the mortgage on the under.
Under.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Like, just take the under.
Yeah. Unless it's Carolina Hurricanes shot on goals, always take the under because honestly, that's just the truth.
Like everybody talks about, life is too short to bet the under. Life is too short to bet the over. I would much rather bet the under because I just think it's fun.
If you do the over, you're sitting there waiting. If you bet,
but I think maybe it's the sicko in me that I just like the under. But anyways, Tulsa at ECU. ECU's a 3-point favorite. Which team is gonna win and put its fans out of its misery both teams are gonna be put out of their misery at the end of the year. Courtney, we'll go with you first.
I'm thinking ECU, and I don't want to get my hopes up, but I am going to say ECU because it is senior day, and something I've noticed out of this program is that senior day is very special to them no matter what year it is. So I am going to say ECU. Do I think it will be close? Yes. But I'm going to go with ECU. I think. That's my guess.
Love it.
So I need to know. What's yours?
Artie?
Look, it's the last game of the season. It's the last game of a bad season. I'm rolling with the Pirates, man. Let's go ECU. Let's get to 3-9, and it's gonna be an awful game. This is gonna be like 13-9, 13-10, one of those finishes. But give me ECU. Give me ECU. Like you said, at home, last game of the season, senior day. Give me the Pirates.
All right, yeah. Fuck it. Roll Pirates, baby.
Yeah.
It is. 3.
And then this season we didn't do walk the plank. This whole season can walk the damn plank.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Boneyard Podcast, everybody. Make sure you go follow us at Boneyard Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, even though we're not really active there. But hey, maybe now that we got Courtney on board, maybe we'll be more active on Facebook, right? Follow us on social. Follow Variety Sports Podcast Network. Check them out. Lots of great content going on right now. And then subscribe to us on YouTube, right? At Boneyard Podcast. Leave us a review, 5 stars. If you do, you're a friend of the podcast. If you don't, you can walk the damn plank. Artie, say the damn thing.
Hey, Pirate Nation, until next time, enjoy Turkey Day, enjoy family, be safe. Courtney, thank you so much for joining us once again. And deuce.
Peace.